move on, and we're now going to be talking with international relations expert, and that, of course, is you, Donovan Williams. And I can't actually believe that it's 2 years. In fact, the war on Ukraine is, in fact, entering its third year. And we also understand that Vladimir Putin is projecting confidence that his country can both outlast Western support for Kiev and thrive economically despite a continued ratcheting of sanctions. Is that just propaganda from his side? What does the actual story look like? What actually is happening on the ground regarding both the Russian situation and the Ukrainian situation? Morning, welcome. Lovely to have you on the show.
Morning, Julie, and morning to all your listeners or those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube, etc. Look, let's just start here. It is crazy that it's 2 years. That was the first thing that came to mind, just like yourself, and it is not crazy. I think it worries that in a blink of an eye, a war uh, can go on for 2 years and with no real end in sight, and another war can also begin within that period, and you don't can't see the gap between them, and you ask yourself, where's the where's the chance for peace? And that's what scares me about the time we find ourselves now in, is that we are in a moment in time globally where it seems that the warmongers are in charge, that diplomacy or the efforts to get people around a table to talk seems to be very distant. It's about winners and losers. Maybe it's because the Americans are going through a seems to be a tough election, but it can't just be that. Is it because of the rise of China and the U.S. And its acolyte Europe, which including the UK, is really worried about the economic rise of China? Um, it is still worrying. It is still worrying. South Africa must be commended, and the ruling party in particular, for reminding the world about the multilateral institutions and the teeth it could have with the ICJ case. Notwithstanding that, the day after things were ratcheted up, and right now, even in the Rafah area. But what is really concerning is that voices to be able to call for talks are non existent, are really non existent. It all becomes about a matter of where you stand in the conflict. And that must scare
Ex-
us.
exactly, and also indicates to us that the United States and all of its allies um, obviously call the shots, that they do and are currently ruling the world, which is frightening. They do want to be absolutely in charge and they are flexing their muscles. So you kind of wonder, what about other world leaders? There are a few like Lula, and then you have, a few other, uh, countries that would speak up in defiance against the United States. Having said, all of that as well, what is also another worry is, like you indicate, a war is in progress, like the Ukraine situation, and then this genocide starts in Palestine. And because of the horrors, the unimaginable horrors that's being perpetrated on the Palestinian people, the Ukrainian issue seems to have gone under the radar. Those are two world making wars we're talking about. We can't even talk about the Palestinian situation being a war because the Palestinian people are absolutely defenseless. They don't have a military to speak about. So obviously what's happening there is a large scale genocide. And in all of this, where our attention is on the Palestinian people, the Ukrainian issue has gone under the radar. Look what's happening in North Africa. those countries are not even getting any media space at all. And those are people, those are human beings, and there's wars playing out there, and we don't even put any spotlight on those issues. So there's wars, there's flashpoints of wars happening all around the world, but because of the horror of what's happening in Palestine, the other situations or the other little wars are being ignored, or just just no attention being paid to them. And this is also, once again, the big players are at play here, because they are selling armaments to these armies. It's in their interest to make sure that their armaments trade is continues to flourish. It's a trade on its own. It creates jobs for millions of people in the United States and elsewhere, and it boosts their economy, does it not?
Look, I've on many times on Salam Media, whenever I've appeared, or most times, for me the greatest threat to peace is the military-industrial complex of the United States or of the Western Empire. It is by far the greatest threat, because you need wars for that military-industrial complex to reproduce. Now, on the matters you are raising, um, is it a failure of the multilateral system that it cannot stop wars, or when wars happen that you cannot intervene? And the global multilateral system will always remain dependent on its members. In other words, the member states, the countries. So you've had, with the economic downturn in Western Europe in particular. So these are your countries who have a history and tradition of democracy, who has been in some way or the other, however shaky, like a buffer to US imperialism or sub-imperialism, but they are quiet. This is the matter. I mean, I Germany is really, really more than just disappointing. And Germany is a good country to look at when you're looking at both Ukraine, Russia, as well as Palestine and the genocide occurring there. But just before I get to Germany, just note that, and I think I want to echo your point, but in a slightly different way, that it's you can call for a ceasefire in Palestine and in Gaza, but it's difficult to call for a ceasefire when it's two armies versing each other. At the same time, the lesser army, in terms of the Ukrainians, are being armed to their teeth, or in many ways, by the United States. So no one's arming Hamas. No one's arming the Palestinians in Gaza. So it's easier to call for a ceasefire. But the US is also, as we know, arming Israel. So, but you can call for a ceasefire because it's one major aggressor or primary aggressor. Whereas if you want to call for a ceasefire, you have to stop arming Ukraine. It's in the interest of the elites in Ukraine, for that matter, for the arming to occur, for arms to flow in. And Putin has indicated, and we will have to take him at his word, in the notorious interview just the other week with Tucker Carlson, who now seems to have become a journalist. And when he was on Fox, it was entertainment news and not necessarily journalism.
Not entertainment, sensationalism, far
Yeah.
right sensationalism.
If you recall, on Fox, when they had the case against when Fox was taken, Fox's defense was the Tucker Carlson show isn't news. If you recall it, that was the defense in court. But
Uh-huh,
nevertheless, I don't want to let me bracket that. But
uh-huh.
that Putin indicates, and I think this is the nub, that in essence, if the US says that we're not going to be arming the Ukrainian army, and says, look, you must talk. The question would then be, who brokers the talks, who mediates it, who sits in it, right? But if they don't, the war continues. Because Putin has indicated he's willing to discuss, and historically or traditionally, I not just believe him. He 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 has been consistent on this. It's all about the Donbass region and about with that long history he gave Tucker Carlson. It's about making certain the Russian enclave of Ukraine returns to Russia. That's basically it. So there is a matter, but at the same time, and this is serious. The longer the bombing, which is, I mean, Ukrainians, what they're going through are, they will hate Russia for their generations. Will never stop hating Russia. So you've created not just a hotspot for now, you've created one for I don't know how long. There's never ever going to be peace between Russia and Ukraine in whichever form Ukraine will take place. Then you have Germany with the issue of Europe itself hasn't been able to get on the green technology advancement, hasn't been able to transform the motor industry in terms of electric vehicles and so forth. So they are behind and they are now dependent on the United States. Whilst at the same time, they're getting their energy from gas in terms of Russia. So you have the bombing of the Nord Stream pipeline, and it was definitely by the US, and Germany being quiet about it, completely quiet. And at the same time, their car companies are not really being able to compete with either China or the Tesla dominated US electrical car market. So you have those things. So they're worried about China and vis-a-vis Russia in that regard in terms of energy. So they keep quiet, and they're really, really catching on the US coattails in that regard. Now, what it means for the multilateral system is that Western Europe doesn't say anything. They say nothing on Gaza and Palestine. They say nothing on Russia, Ukraine, other than to parrot the United States. You've had a little bit of say Norway, etc., on UNRWA, but other than that, let's be serious. Where is the voice of Western Europe? You have people though, and that is the good development. Similar to our struggle, our international struggle against apartheid, where the people of Western Europe and the people of the United States were able to voice their opinion that they agreed with a black South African struggle. They did not agree with the racist white regime. You do have the rumblings of that, but it is clouded by elections. Right now, the elections in the United States means that you are so fearful of Trump that even as you raise Palestine and Gaza, what will happen? What will happen when Trump comes in? And this is
And
the complicated sense. And I don't know how
with
you just to say this, that what I'm worried about, I really am worried about, is that, not to sound so glib, but how do you give peace a chance in a world where there's no concrete platform to have that discussion?
Okay, we're going to have to wrap up now because we've got another interview lined up. I could sit here all day talking to you and picking your brains on this matter. It's very interesting. A very short and sharp answer. What are the chances of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? What are the chances that Ukraine will hand over that Donbass region to Russia, because that's the area that the war is all about? Or do you see this going to be a protracted, long-term war going on for years and years and years?
The president of Ukraine's political life depends on the United States. He will never have peace talks with Russia. Unless you can get another political leader, unless you can get a de Klerk who takes over from PW Botha, Russia will have no one to talk to. As simple as that. Unless they can have talks with some other Ukrainian political figure, there's going to be no peace talks. That's my short.
And sadly, the killings then continue. Lovely talking with you. You have yourself a great day. Thank you indeed for your time.
Okay, bye.
It is exactly 9:51. News and Views, wrapping up on our final interview for the morning. We are going to be talking to Belinda now regarding Sherry Nell versus USA pharmaceutical company Vertex. This has to do with a case where two sisters were lost to cystic fibrosis. And of course, I think this sounds very, very messy indeed. So do stay with us.